I have news for leftists. Capitalism is dead. But wait, what's come next is even worse. In the digital realm, a new breed of techno-feudal overlords reigns supreme, extracting value from our every online interaction, like medieval lords taxing peasants. This isn't a dystopian fiction. It's the reality of our modern economic landscape, where the lords of Silicon Valley have amassed wealth and power that would make ancient monarchs jealous. Imagine a world where every click, every purchase, every message you send becomes a valuable resource harvested by digital overlords. A world where your online presence is no longer just a reflection of your life, but a form of labor that enriches trillion-dollar companies. This isn't science fiction. It's the reality we're living in today. A reality where we've become what Yanis Varoufakis calls cloud serfs in a vast digital fiefdom. But how did we get here? And more importantly, what does it mean for our future? The rise of techno-feudalism didn't happen overnight. It's the culmination of decades of technological advancement, economic shifts, and societal changes. The seeds were planted in the early days of the internet, when companies like Google and Facebook first realized the immense value of user data. As these platforms grew, they didn't just become successful businesses, they became the very infrastructure of our digital lives, transforming into what Shoshana Zuboff terms surveillance capitalists.
But now, we're beginning to understand that privacy policies are actually surveillance policies.
Think about it. How many times a day do you use Google to search for information? How often do you check Facebook or Instagram to stay connected with friends and family? These services have become so ubiquitous, so essential to our daily routines, that they're no longer just optional tools. They're utilities, as crucial to modern life as electricity or running water. But unlike traditional utilities, these tech giants don't just provide a service in exchange for a fee. They extract value from our every interaction, turning our digital footprints into what Zuboff calls behavioral surplus, a commodity more precious than oil. This is what sets techno-feudalism apart from traditional capitalism. In the capitalist system, profit drives innovation and investment. Companies reinvest their earnings to develop new products, expand production, and increase labor productivity. But in the techno-feudalist model, the focus shifts from production to extraction. The goal isn't to create new goods or services, but to capture more data, more attention, more of our digital lives. This is what Cédric Durand refers to as cloud rent, a form of wealth extraction that doesn't contribute to the circular flow of income in the real economy. This shift has profound implications for the economy and society at large. As Varoufakis puts it, when you have such a large sum of money extracted in the form of cloud rent, that money disappears from a circular flow of income. In other words, instead of being reinvested in the real economy, wealth becomes concentrated in the hands of a few tech lords, creating what some have called a new digital aristocracy. But the impacts of techno-feudalism go far beyond economics. These digital fiefdoms are reshaping the very nature of work and social interaction. Consider the gig economy workers who rely on platforms like Uber or Deliveroo. They're not traditional employees, but neither are they truly independent contractors. Instead, they occupy a new, precarious position: digital serfs, bound to the algorithms and whims of their techno-lords. Even for those of us who don't work directly for tech platforms, our relationship with these companies is far from equal. Every time we post on social media, search for a product online, or use a navigation app, we're contributing free labor to these digital estates. Our actions, preferences, and even our movements are constantly being monitored and monetized. This asymmetry of power is reminiscent of the feudal system, where lords controlled vast tracts of land and the peasants who worked it. But instead of agricultural estates, today's tech giants preside over digital domains that span the globe, and their power extends far beyond the economic sphere. These companies have become so large and influential that they often act more like nation-states than businesses. They lobby governments, shape foreign policy, and even create their own currencies. Facebook's attempt to launch its own cryptocurrency, Libra, later rebranded as Diem, was a stark illustration of this trend. While that particular project failed, it highlighted the ambitions of these tech giants to extend their reach into every aspect of our lives. But perhaps the most insidious aspect of techno-feudalism is how it shapes our behavior and even our thoughts. The algorithms that power these platforms are designed not just to predict our actions, but to influence them. They decide what information we see, what products we're exposed to, and even who we interact with online. This level of control over our digital environments gives tech companies unprecedented power to shape public opinion and behavior. As Durand notes in his book Techno-feudalism, these platforms have become indispensable infrastructure, akin to electricity providers or telecoms. But unlike those regulated utilities, tech giants operate with far less oversight and accountability. They've become, in essence, private governments ruling over vast digital territories. The consequences of this shift are already becoming apparent. We're seeing increased polarization in public discourse, as algorithms push users towards more extreme content to keep them engaged. We're witnessing the erosion of privacy, as more and more of our personal information is collected and analyzed. And we're experiencing a concentration of wealth and power that threatens the very foundations of democracy. But is this truly the end of capitalism, as some theorists suggest? Or is it merely capitalism's latest, most advanced form? The debate is ongoing, but one thing is clear: the economic system we're living under today is fundamentally different from the industrial capitalism of the 19th and 20th centuries. Critics of the techno-feudalism thesis argue that we're still operating within a capitalist framework, just with new tools and methods of extraction. They point out that tech companies, for all their talk of disruption and innovation, are still driven by the profit motive. And indeed, the stock market valuations of these firms suggest that investors still see them as engines of capitalist growth. However, even if we accept that this is still capitalism, it's a form of capitalism that's increasingly diverging from its industrial roots. The focus on data extraction and algorithmic control represents a qualitative shift in how value is created and distributed in the economy. This is what some theorists have termed cognitive capitalism, recognizing the central role that knowledge and information play in this new economic paradigm. So what can be done about this new economic order? Some propose increased regulation and antitrust action to break up the tech giants. Others advocate for digital rights and data ownership laws to give individuals more control over their information. There are even calls for the creation of public digital infrastructure to provide alternatives to private platforms. Varoufakis suggests several measures, including a cloud tax on digital transactions.
They will always have the better accountants and ensure that their capital expenditure will equal their revenues, and therefore they will pay no tax on profits because they will never have profits.
These are all important steps, but they may not be enough to fully address the challenges posed by techno-feudalism. We may need to fundamentally rethink our economic and social structures for the digital age. It's also crucial that we develop a deeper understanding of how these technologies are shaping our society and our individual behaviors. Digital literacy needs to go beyond just teaching people how to use technology. It must include critical thinking about the power structures and economic models underlying our digital world. As we grapple with these issues, I think it's important to remember that technology itself is neutral. The problem isn't the existence of powerful digital tools, but how they're being used and who controls them. The same technologies that enable surveillance and exploitation could, in different hands, be used to enhance democracy, foster creativity, and build more equitable economic systems. The transition from feudalism to capitalism took centuries and involved profound social, political, and economic changes. If we are indeed moving into a new economic era, it's likely that the shift will be equally complex and long-lasting. But unlike our ancestors who lived through previous economic transitions, we have the advantage of being able to see and understand the changes as they're happening. In the end, the challenge of techno-feudalism is not just economic or technological. It's fundamentally about power. Who will control the digital infrastructure that increasingly mediates our lives? Will it be a handful of tech lords, or will we find ways to democratize these new forms of wealth and influence? As we stand at this crossroads, the choices we make will shape not just our economy, but the very nature of our society for generations to come.